Outer Orange.
Wow, it feels like it's been a while since I've hit the record button. Oh, but hi, welcome back. Hi, everyone. Today we have a kind of an interesting video, very different from what I normally do, but I've been wanting to do one of these for a while, and I just kind of did this thing where I made a tweet and I hit send, and then it went like exactly like that with all the sound effects and everything. Anyway, guys, today we're going to be going over a really interesting topic, which is the concept of defensive options in D. For those guys that may not know, in the past we've had defensive options, rather it's been in G era. I kind of made a tweet kind of discussing that, or kind of an approach towards it. Some kind of defensive option in general, like any kind of heal guardian could, or like a D version of a heal guardian would be kind of cool. Anyway, today we're going to look at all these tweets, everything that everyone posted, what they said, what they talked about. And again, I also make it clear, people have opinions, I have opinions, we're going to be different, and that is okay. This is a very 50-50 conversation, so there's definitely going to be two ends of this. So just warning you, is way more 50-50 than I thought it was going to be actually. Heal guardians should come to D, agree, disagree. I basically put a picture here that says what heal guardians are. So this one says when this unit is put on guard circle from hand, if you did not ride a grade 3 or greater unit this fight, perform one of the following. Choose one of your vanguards, gets 10k until the end of turn, and then also you can choose one of your opponent's units and it gets -2 crits until the end of that battle, and then once used placed from on vanguard from hand, if your damage has no cards, put the top card of your deck into your damage zone. Now, it's these heal guardians, they're usually grade 3s, they're heals, so you replace heals for them. They have a little bit less shield. At the time, heals were 20ks, these were 15ks, and basically what happens is you would substitute these to help with early aggression. If you're going second, you're playing against a deck that's like a restanding vanguard or has a crit on it, you can minus it. This is your opponents have to think through having to call cards, because if they call cards too early, then they can just get shut down by a heal guardian. It made like an interesting dynamic that kind of got added on to something called a V Premium, which isn't really a format anymore, but my personal opinion is ever since heal guardians got introduced, V Premium got a lot better as a format, but V Premium is significantly faster and is a different format from our current format, which is standard. And this is just something I brought up. It'd be an interesting concept to bring in, since a lot of decks tend to rush you. Buddy Fight got introduced with like special triggers and special ways to proc stuff, and I was thinking about, man, heal guardians would be kind of cool. Now, before we go into like super deep, because like I said, there's a lot of people talking about it, I did give my thoughts on it, and I'm not going to go into like a whole discussion, but basically I said like we can make different versions, and I also said that we should probably take out this last effect here. I think this last effect's a little too good. I think counterburst now is like super important in the game. It should definitely stay. Maybe we don't have this at all, just have these two up here. It'll be a little bit different. I also mentioned this is the main reason why I think these would be interesting to add and not a bad idea overall. I'm not a fan of tri-laning. I never was. It's actually why I really don't like jet meta. I just wasn't a big fan of that, or going second into Ava at our peak, where they were just high roll into double ops grades and you just kind of lose on the spot. It's really hard to guard sometimes, and you just get blasted by random stuff like this. Felt what XL2 felt like on release, and it sucked ass, which is very true. During when XL2 meta first came out for V, basically what happens if you went first, you just kind of super win. If you go second, you're usually losing. It didn't really matter because you would die the minute your opponent rides on to grade 3. I personally think that we're slowly getting into that kind of state in D, and I do agree that the turn 1, turn 2, and turn 3 are all very important plays. And like I said, it doesn't have to be 10k, it could be a little bit smaller, but I do think it'd be nice to have a way to handle this stuff. Have to make the heals grade 3s, they could be 0s, they could be whatever we want them to be, right? So like I said, they're tutored for D, so they could be their own things. Maybe we can make an OT that has like a special ability on it that lets you protect yourself for a turn. So like I said, there's multiple ways to kind of go about this. It doesn't have to be this specifically exactly to the screenshot here, right? So anyways, I basically brought that up. So like the idea of having to hold on to heals, it means that there's less chances of people checking heals offensively, defensively, all that kind of fun stuff. Right now, there's really no reason to hold on to heals. They're really just there. So having heals with actual good effects, not the ones we currently have. The counter heals aren't bad, don't get me wrong, but they're also not that amazing either. They're way too situational. So it would be nice to actually be able to keep heals that actually matter, that are more game deciding. And I think it also lower the chance of RNG of people trying to randomly check heals to win the game, especially since we have a 5th heal in D. Someone brought up G Guardians in some of the posts that we talk about here in a sec, and I think they'd be very interesting, but I think they have to be very specific, because right now G Guardians are very much going to be tutored towards Tri decks, and I definitely don't want to go down that path. I also don't want, I think DE should have its own identity. I don't think it needs to copy everything that every other format's doing. Like with the same thing with the heal guardians, it has to be exact. It could be its own form, like a different defense mechanic. It doesn't have to be literally a heal guardian. It could be something else, but something similar that might help with a little bit of early game aggression. Anyway, long story short, this was an interesting idea. I'm not really for for it. I actually think we should step away from D feeling like G, if that makes any sense. I actually like D being its own thing. But like I said, this is kind of like a me opinion. I'm not really big into the nostalgia stuff. I actually like the units that are being brought into D, like their own units. I don't really like all the nostalgia stuff as much, and I think the nostalgia stuff could be less. Anyways, let's go down the line of all the different discussions. We'll start with the with Swagnolia, who apparently smoked some crack on this one. He says, "Girl, I agree with you, but you're getting cooked in the quote tweets." It was definitely not getting cooked in the quote tweets. Everyone was just sharing opinions. It was very friendly, very nice. So I don't know what crack Swagnolia was smoking or what he read that I didn't read, but it's okay. Anyway, so we have Zen here mentioning yes and draw PGs. This got brought up a lot actually in some of the tweets a little bit further down. Some people brought up the concept of draw PGs, and I thought that was really interesting. I don't know how much I agree or disagree with draw PGs. I definitely don't think they're a bad idea. I saw some people really going against draw PGs. I think they can be okay. I do miss draw PGs. I think they were a nice element, but also they cause other issues. Premium actually has crits that are draws as well, so to keep in mind those got introduced. I think those were pretty cool. They came from Vanguard 0. I do think triggers should just have more effects on them than just being raw shield, so I definitely think that it wouldn't be a bad idea. Here with Vino saying W take real, in my opinion, a lot more identity for ride lines. Definitely a really good concept. Is something that's been getting brought up a little bit more about identity with clans, with going into nations and how nations feel more identityless, and definitely kind of like its own topic. This is kind of like a little bit of another, maybe a topic for another day that we can have. So here's Azim. Azim kind of made 2 posts, but one was like a joke and one was this one. No, because I have themed heals in my decks, I don't want to ruin the vibes with them. I'm sure they're good for the game, but my ass is thinking purely from a cosmetic and financial standpoint. As with the in, I know these are going to be hard to get if they're double R, triple R, which is another really good concept. So people brought up, like, obviously payment, like that's going to cost a lot of money. Hopefully, if we ever get new stuff, I really kind of hope that they start kind of lowering the rarity of some stuff. Like, it really shouldn't be like something that you're going to use in every deck. Shouldn't be like a triple R, or if it's going to be triple R, like please like make it more expandable, or you know, make it a unique one, like one of like the ace units is a good representation. I don't know how expensive they're going to be, but they shouldn't be that expensive because you can only have one in the deck, right? You can only have one, so because you can only have one, it should be easier to distribute and get out, right? And more, but jokes aside, yes, I'm down if they do this. So just a general thought. So here I have the I talk to Chi. Also bring up hard agree. I'm tired of V feeling like a Dyro simulator. I've been asking you this for years. It's now getting bad enough to the point it makes me not want to build test for the form anymore. Why bother when my opponent gets an extra 100k shield just by being lucky? So there's that. I think they have a little more. V felt so much better when they introduced and they smoothed out the gameplay of premium as well. D currently does not have a comparable advantage to going second. They need to give us some kind of defensive mechanic deck building option to account for this problem. Basically, they're saying like, yeah, we kind of need this, but some people disagree that it makes going first decks better. It's kind of like a whole train of thought. I personally see, I'm more leaning towards a yes, but with like a different approach. Always says blitz orders in the style of G Guardians would be cool. Have an effect that matches deck play style or allows for counter to aggression from the opponent. And then we have Caesar here that just says, I mean, yeah, sure, but I would rather just play V. I mean, we can have like a different, like I said, different variation of them, so it's not a big deal. Crow here, agree, just giving them even one more option, making them work the whole game instead of just the early game would be a great for standard. The current game state desperately needs some definitive options. So yeah, kind of what we were talking about earlier would be a nice way to kind of help with that. If it means we get a Shadow Pound or darker themed designed heal trigger for a Keter, I don't care if it's a dragon, a knight, a mage, etc. And by all means, there's way too many angels to give the vanilla heal slots at Keter anyway, so someone just wants an aesthetics. If you are liking this content, please don't forget to like and subscribe so you can see this pretty happy face all the time. You might not even know that you're not even sub, so please feel free to sub. I'm trying to get to 5k. We're trying to go above and beyond, so please join me on the above and beyond. So let's do it together. Yeah. Jazz here says, I don't think so. I think we should get defensive guardians that have different requirements, etc. Maybe like discard an order, non-order, token order, etc. Yeah, so this is sort of what I'm feeling. Like, I'm feeling defensive guardians that have a different requirement would be great. So this is just definitely more towards what I'm leaning towards. So I definitely agree with like this stance that this person has. On the one hand, having effect triggers will actually versatile skills would be neat. On the other hand, I can see the writing on the wall of them having to be terrible ratios. Ushi just want matches to end by turn 4 or 5, which is kind of funny because we have an extra heal now. This doesn't always happen. Sometimes on a rare occasion it does, but games don't usually end that quickly, and the main reason is because the person that's at 5 usually just heals back down. That's usually what happens when someone gets rushed. They'll either die or they'll heal back down, and then they're back in the game. Like, it's one of those things. We have Vazis here. I saw people say that heal guardians negate going second early rush, which is big for pace versus turn 3 blitzing, and heal guardians propagate draw the outs design mentality, which can kind of suck. We definitely need a defensive buff though, and I've toyed with a once per turn 20k PAL player shield that turns on when your opponent's grade 3 or greater. That'd also be nice. I think it'd be nice to have some kind of extra shield. We kind of got them a little bit with these pride cyclers, but I will say it's still not enough. Like, they kind of don't really, because they discard themselves to give you like an extra shield. Sometimes they don't really come up as often as you want them to. I've been kind of experimenting with them, and they're not my favorite thing in the world, but I don't dislike them. We have Manta here. I'm not sure if heal guardians exactly, but some better effect triggers and defensive options for sure. So 100% I'm with this. Like, just a different, it would just be nice to get some completely new effect triggers in general, just like new stuff to kind of refresh the format a little bit. Sheriff says, I would say definitely for making it easier to survive going second, but unsure if I'd want MS heals or necessary even triggers, since then heals will have a new definitive best option of which to run. And I think that will more. They should print it as a R, but Bushi might be dumb enough to print them as a triple R. They're not necessarily dumb enough. They're, you know, they gotta make their money, right? So yeah, chances are they probably will end up being printed as triple Rs if they were to come out. But you know, it's just all speculation. IMO, not heal guardian, but more trigger guardian outside of fronts and draws. Completely agree. Quintet wall instead. I'm not sure what this is. I'm pretty sure it's a card from a different card game. Justin says yes, but only if they get printed as a common, because otherwise they'll end up costing like triple digits a pop. Yeah, they're gonna be really expensive. Even heal guardians of V were pretty pricey. V wasn't even like as popular before back then. We have the trash man that says disagree. We should get more defensive options in D, but these can stay in V and premium. So they're just saying nah, which is valid. They are still saying like, hey, we should get some defensive options, which I personally support. I support the defensive option route more so than specifically heal guardians, just to be precise. We have Sunny here. If they killed premium, I mean, might as well. Damn, that's fair. Some people think premium is dying or potentially dying. A topic for another day probably as well. Like I said, some of the topics people touch here, we could probably have an entire 3 to 4 videos discussing those as well, because there's quite a bit to talk about nowadays. I feel like there's a lot to discuss in terms of where Vanguard is going, along with other card games coming out, such as Godzilla being out and Hololive being out, and sort of what direction we'll be going into next year in 2026, and where that's gonna hit the margin with like regionals and what's gonna happen there, because we have more card games that will be probably played. We don't know, obviously, but chances are they're probably going to be at the next following regionals, and how is that going to impact Vanguard, because Vanguard has 2 formats, right? So something to think about. We have Tori here. I read it without looking at the image. I thought you were talking about G guards, but yes, please. We have Nate here. No, V is weird. Fever Dream needs to stay in its alternate timeline. G can keep G guardians and V can keep heal guardians. So they're just basically saying nah. They didn't really give a reason why, but they just said no. Like, let's just keep things how they are. Let's just keep everyone separate, which is valid. That's an argument. Keeping things separate, which I mentioned earlier. I don't want everything being like copy pasted over, right, to D, right? So I see the discussion here. We have Kitsune saying no, but draw PGs may be assuming they radioactively treat all current PGs as draw PGs, as draw triggers. That would be kind of interesting. Like I said, I can't remember who, someone like really went against the draw PG thing. Kind of miss having the 4 deck slots. I think that's why a lot of people want these. It would also lower the amount of crits people would probably be running, and it'd be a lot more like rainbow trigger type of esque stuff, or maybe they'd be a little bit cleaner on the deck slots, on the crit slots maybe. It would be interesting to think about though. Very on here, yes, we need more defensive options in general, with blitz orders mainly being a once per turn unless you use the new cyclers or Bolino order, of course. We still have to pray if we draw into rush shield or PGs. The weird comments that Bushi prints that operate on X amount of battles feels like a genuine slap in the face, since it doesn't solve the issue when ideas like G Guardians did. Honestly, I'd rather have 30k Sentinels back. I thought this was interesting. It's the only person that actually said this, and I thought this was an interesting concept, because I actually really like 30k Sentinel crits. I thought that was a really interesting concept that generally wasn't explored that well in V, and I actually thought they were really cool. So they're talking about V crit Sentinels. They're basically you're replacing Sentinels for a crit trigger that is a 30k shield, and unironically they're really cool. I actually really like them. We have a disagree, just not. Why not? More options equals more playstyle. No, because the market is going to be extra loud with the pricing, and I live in a third world country. I can't afford almost nothing good or meta here. That is really unfortunate. I really hope that gets fixed. That's awful. I genuinely always I get so heartbroken hearing stuff like this, because I can't like personally fix it, and it just sucks hearing that this is happening somewhere else, because I don't have this problem. The prices can be a little crazy, but we have a big enough local scene where people can trade and stuff like that, so it's not the end of the world. But hearing stuff like this, I'm just like, man, like that's tough. And then we have some spam here, which is probably some more people. So we have Eric, not really. This one has a reason to exist in V because many meta decks can just consistently kill you on the turn they ride grade 3 or Arsenal grade 2. D don't have that problem at the moment. So I actually disagree with this. I think this is extremely untrue. I think a lot of decks can kill you when they ride to 3, and a lot of them are really broken right now. And if they don't kill you to 3, they'll make a really bad game state where they'll just kill you the turn after. Anyway, so the top of my head is just bats. Bat can just auto slaughter you on the turn they ride, which I don't think is very healthy at all. I still to this day don't know why that deck's still alive, but that deck's the definition of why I think we should have some kind of defensive options to deal with decks like this. And CPU say would just said yeah, basically yeah, agree. Now I'm not done. Like we have all this, but we actually have all the quote retweets too because people did quote retweet this. Zay says IDK, but I definitely believe those order triggers should be added to the other nations and not be unique to buddy fight decks. So something that I mentioned earlier about buddy fight, they have some special stuff. They could probably translate that over to regular decks, and maybe they're experimenting with buddy fight to kind of bring it over. So maybe that's something that's in the works. Who knows? Jeremy mentioned, I think that lower rarity support cards for decks can have their normal units with higher printed shield values or skills that increase shield as well. Something like that for decks, making the decks more viable and increasing deck building expressions. So they're basically just saying like we could basically just print more cards that will help decks out, especially decks that are struggling. So yeah, I see that point. Then we have Chill Axe and Greed Dragon Shield. Can't we have effect triggers that work similar to it? And how about those cool Order Sentinels, Solomon Shield, Blue Dragon Shield, Body Replacement? They're all PGs, but extra scales unique to them. I think they're talking about Buddy Fight here. I'm not gonna lie, I have not been keeping up with Buddy Fight at all, but pretty sure that's what they're going over here. We have Yang here says no, but they should give D more options to help survive going second, like when they released Persona Shields, those were good. And we have Chi going even further in, been engaging with a lot of people on this one. This is a really good discussion point. I want to enjoy a standard. I want it to feel fun. Going first is too strong. Triggers are too strong. Persona Rise too strong. We need something defensive in the format. We have for a while. Something like Heal Gardens, then Bushi needs to think of something to mitigate the power low shield problem that standard has plagued for a long time. It's going to get worse as they push the power numbers even higher as they try to sell new sets and bosses. So it's something interesting to think about. I definitely agree. And then there's the original post here. They're basically kind of rereading what they're saying, like, hey, like this is a problem. We should do something to fix it. Some kind of defensive option should be applied. So which is I will keep on the trend. So this is Wolfern. I think more of a thing is not what we want. We should probably focus first on having different ways of doing the things and different things to do. Having more of a thing like defense just push design into more attack. So that's fair. So he's basically kind of counter-arguing, saying it like just because we can get more defense doesn't mean we're just not gonna get more attack. Because if you have more of defense doesn't mean that people just won't have more attack. A black and white type of thing where it's gonna keep rocking the boat a little bit. It could end kind of badly. So so he's basically saying there might be a different angle we need to take to kind of get there, right? So Narwi says no to heal grinds, yes to draw PGs because the choice for extra deck slots is always welcome. Last turn, I'll leave the first bit for everyone else to discuss, but as for the self ping, it basically voids any presence of zero damaging. This is probably the most unhealthy part about heal grinds, especially with a lot of deck designs output to only needing 1 CB to play out an optimal turn. And I agree, I definitely don't think the pinging should be brought in. I definitely think the pinging should stay away, in my opinion. It's not always a play that every matchup will always make, but it is somewhat of more important to denial plays that exist in D, especially in a format where a lot of things want to go first and snowball. If anything, this would probably make going first better than it should. So I'm not really for the damage denial part of the Heal Guardian. There's definitely games where if you damage deny your opponent, it can help. A lot of people just don't know how to play into it because most people just play so aggressively for some reason. Everyone's just like, I'm going to slam a board and swing, or slam a board and swing. And I get it, the turn 2 matters a lot, but you can actually even tempo out some games by not giving damage. We have Starwing here. I love the idea of D-triggers creating more interaction. I am weary of this worsening the experience for most players though. The last few metas have featured decks who would benefit from starving off early tri-wanes, and their strings tend not to be pre-grade 3 explosions. If anything, the homogeneity I see a lot of people not care for would worsen as a result. It could cause, it could make things worse over time. And some people did argue this quite a bit. Early, not being able to tri-lane would cause issues, is what they're saying. Like it would make it worse, a worser game state. We have Tricep here. They shouldn't print them because they'll be $50 each out of the box, and that's not fair for me. We have Sap here. I think the first skill will end up being fine indeed. It restricts the use to only when your opponent's grade 3 or greater and you're on grade 2 or less. Grade 2 rushing is a really risky play that is already punishable by defense. Last thing you want is a trigger that can ensure it. Kay says here, as good as As cool as good trigger effects would realistically be broken, Heal Guardians made mid-range and late game decks far too strong and kills aggro. Draw PGs delete the #1 downside to them, and every deck would play them, and even Bubble Mine crits would break at least 5 decks. So not too sure on this one about how much they would break stuff, but I do think, like I said, we can alterate them. It don't have to be exactly precise to the whole thing of what's being said. What of the Heal Guardians or draw PGs, they get a little bit different. They could trigger in certain different ways. You know, they don't have to be specific to what they are. But it's a good conversation to have. And it kills aggro decks, which is kind of funny because every deck is technically an aggro deck in Vanguard. There really is no like specific. It's hard to explain it, but most Vanguard decks are aggro decks because you can swing the same turn you play, right? Except for going first. So something to kind of keep in mind. But I think if we balance it correctly, you could probably fix this issue of making mid to late game too strong, because I do see the issue from the other end. You know, people have Persona Ride, all this stuff. You know, the decks get stronger and stronger as the game goes typically. So because the decks get stronger and stronger as the game goes, if you don't have a way to kind of push for damage early on, then you're kind of already screwed and you're already in a bad position once you get to mid to late game. We have Kai here, who totally disagrees with people saying that it would be a bad idea because it makes decks better. The fundamental issue with D is that going first is a huge advantage. It's so strong that most decks going first have a good chance to snowball out of the game unless luck starts going against them. The best decks in the recent D formats have been decks that have strong going second place, either through great resource conversion or grade 3 ride-ups. We wouldn't be in this situation if going first was designed better, except you get a tempo advantage and have power lane lines that require defensive trigger to even guard efficiently. The risk is just kind of going on and on about V a little bit here. And then we have Remain here saying Heal Guardians would actually make the go first decks better anyway, and then the go second decks would no longer be able to tri lane efficiently, and the go first would be able to face 0 pressure early. All the go second decks get is a slightly less screwed up opponent's grade 3, not equal at all. And that's basically people counter arguing the Heal Guardian idea in general more. And this depends on what's the situation right now in D for the Heiwa here also responding to this. So that's basically all the responses, at least directly to my tweet. OuterOrange here, I actually missed a tweet from April here. She actually brought up some points as well. I don't know why, but I couldn't find this tweet. Printing Heal Guardians in a format without innocuous scaling. A very interesting word there, actually. Anyway, would create frequent tier 0 formats and make gameplay super sacky. There would be terrible design, and also for anyone thinking about it, draw PGs in D would make the game a lot worse too. Well, along with I think a couple other people that are kind of on the same side about this, and kind of just saying like, hey, like these would be really bad for the format. It would be interesting to actually experiment with the concept, maybe with some, like I said, some slight altercations, see why Sage feels this way, aside from obviously saying it's bad. Kind of curious to see what the elements are. We have other people like Cheng Yu who basically made a chart about it, and also again, I'm gonna keep saying this over and over again, but we don't necessarily have to have exactly the same exact kind of effects as the Heal Guardians from V. There's a lot of discussions about tri-laning being good. Like I said, my personal opinion, I don't really like it. I think it's also a form of toxicity and it's super sacky in its own way. But again, to each their own in terms of this. Sage, you got lucky. You get your own panel. A lot of back and forth. A lot more people talked about this than I expected them to. I wasn't really expecting so many people to kind of bring these up, so I thought that was really cool. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of discussion thing. Let me know below how you feel about some of these things and what your thoughts are on this kind of stuff. And let me know in the comments below if you know which Heal Guardian this is, which specific Heal Guardian this is in this picture here. Which one is it? You'll get your, if you're the first one, you'll get your comment pinned. 50 cards on shop, Code Orange if you need anything for cards and other related card games as well. He's got a bunch of product. If you use supplies, you can use BCWSUPPLIES. You can use my code ORANGE10 to save yourself some money there. As always, please like and subscribe if you're really enjoying this content. It really helps me and try to get to that 5K. I got a lot of stuff coming up and I'm really excited for it. And that, guys, thank you as always for watching. Peace out. That's with that. I'll see you guys in a future video. Bye.